Well, this morning, while we are still waiting to see which party controls the House of Representatives, we are getting a clearer picture of the final makeup of the Senate. This is after NBC News projected that Democratic candidate Ruben Gallego is the winner of Arizona's Senate race. Gallego will be the border state's first Latino senator. We have NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitali joining us on this now. Ali, good morning. So another call here. Arizona, though, it's a mixed bag, right, when it comes to politics, and certainly for Democrats. The state went for President-elect Trump, but then they take this Senate seat. Talk to us about this result and what Gallego is expected to be able to accomplish for Arizona in the Senate.
We're actually seeing this fascinating story start to emerge about senators, including Democrats like Gallego, but also just to the west of him in Nevada, the fact that Jackie Rosen is likely to be able to keep her seat. All of these are kind of telltale signs, if you will, that even though Trump had a wave in his favor, there were voters who were willing to entertain the idea of ticket splitting. And so that's certainly what we saw in places like Arizona. If I still had that magic wall, magic big board still behind me, I would be able to show you the way in which he did it, because I imagine it went through places like Maricopa County in the Phoenix area where Gallego was able to run up the score even as Trump managed to win there. But that was really because Gallego tried to go in a nonpartisan fashion and try to pick up not just Democrats who want to hear his message as a Democrat, but also Republicans who might be reluctant to vote for Kari Lake, in large part those McCain Republicans that still exist in Arizona. Lake was struggling to pick those up. Gallego was eager to do that, though, and that's likely the story of how he was able to win this seat and come to Washington.
Ali, you killed it with the board, by the way. It was so fun to see you doing that. Let's talk about another Senate race, because we know
I can just imagine it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here's Maricopa. We know the Republicans have won the Senate. We've been talking about that a lot, but there is still a race that NBC News hasn't called. It is in all-important Pennsylvania. We do have the Republican candidate, though, Dave McCormick, declaring victory. But what's going on here? How close is this?
We are watching the Bob Casey campaign. Casey, of course, the incumbent senator there, say, let's wait, let's count all the votes, let's be patient. Republicans, though, including McCormick, are saying this thing is done and they want McCormick to come to Washington. That's not because they want him to start his term early. None of this really kicks into play until January, but new member orientation starts this week. McCormick, if he wins, would be one of those new members. And also Republicans tomorrow, you touched on this with Dasha, have their Republican leadership election. That's going to be crucial. It also could be tight. McCormick would have a vote in that. Now, all of this comes down to whether or not the current majority leader, which is Democrat Chuck Schumer, allows McCormick to come. But Republican senators are also working their own way of getting him there to Washington and into the Capitol. Several of them say, hey, we're going to escort him in. He's going to be our guest. And that's the way that McCormick is going to be able to come to Republican freshman senator orientation without technically being the senator from Pennsylvania, because that race we have not called, others have not called it. Though I will say, when you look at where the vote totals are still outstanding, there is a very narrow and getting narrower path for the incumbent Democratic senator there, Bob Casey.
Every time you say new member orientation, or I hear that, it's just suddenly all the new members of the Senate are like college kids wearing backpacks. It's so funny. Ali, before I let you go, we do have to talk about where things stand in the battle over control of the House. Is there a realistic path here for Democrats to victory right now?
I like that you said college, because I definitely think about them as like elementary age, getting on the school bus with their lunches. But whatever, we're going to get out of this fantasy land that we're living in. On the House side, there are actually some new members who might not know if they're coming to Congress yet. We knew that races in Alaska and California were going to take a while to count. That is certainly a reality that is still in play, and we're waiting to see what this majority actually shakes out being. For their part, Democrats that I speak to, although they did see a potential path, losing seats over the weekend in places like Colorado and Arizona makes that path basically non-existent at this point. Democrats know they are likely to be in the minority here. Republicans preparing as if they have the majority. But this is where former president, now President-elect Trump might be making their lives a little more difficult. We talk about how close the margins are. That margin's still being counted in real time. But the more members that he takes out of the House of Representatives, the harder it gets. So far, we know that he's taken 2. But in the instance of someone like Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, going into the administration as well, that means there's a vacant seat back in South Dakota. Are there other members of the House that might want to run for that, who have higher ambitions while staying close to home? There are trigger effects and domino effects to all of these decisions. Even if he's not directly taking someone out of the House, it could have an impact. And the thing you got to remember here in the House of Representatives is people can get sick. Deaths can happen at random or spontaneously, and that can change the balance of power. One person being absent because they had outpatient surgery one day could be a difference maker for key votes. Things happen all the time, and that's the reality of close margins in Congress.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.